Screech by Taran NCT on AO3. Episode 13. Chapter 13. Shouta felt as if his world had shifted, just a few inches to the left. He was off center. The adorable boy he had let into his heart and home. The vigilante who he had thought he had known the full extent of his skills, had not only been holding back this whole time, but had been just barely showing his true abilities. Shouta had thought he was as powerful as Hizashi was, but he was wrong. Oh gods, he was wrong. When Screech had cheekily told him to stay out of his way, Shouta had been annoyed, but was willing to admit to himself that the battle in the plaza really would be out of his comfort zone, and he trusted Screech's abilities. And so, he decided to follow through with his bird son's suggestion. He really did have to talk with his students on proper protocol, though, because when the villain made of mist showed up, both Satoru and Kirishima charged in to fight him, blocking his line of sight, and enabling the villain to create portals that scattered the students to various parts of the facility. Fortunately, Ida Tenya was able to make it out of the building, and raced to alert the rest of the school to the attack. By the time the rest of the teachers arrived, though, Ashiro, Uraraka, and Sajiro had already bore witnesses to the devastating power that was their classmate. They watched him screech at the villain multiple times, watched as the creature's limbs were crushed by the force of the sound waves, watched as his screech vibrated the creature's very cells, causing it to explode, showering the entire plaza in blood and gore. They witnessed as Midoriya Izuku emptied his stomach on the ground and broke down into tears, deep, heart-wrenching sobs, collapsing to his knee and hugging himself with everything he was worth, wrapping himself in his own wings to try to shield himself from anyone else witnessing the aftermath of the most powerful attack. Shouta knew he would need to keep an eye on Izuku tonight. He probably shouldn't be left alone for more than a few minutes at any given moment. The rest of the students were ushered out of the facility before Izuku managed to unfurl his wings. Looking around, Izuku listlessly walked to the lake. "Izuku, where are you going?" Shouta asked. Instead of a real reply, Izuku hooted softly, and then kneeled next to the water and started splashing himself, rinsing off the blood and gore. He kept splashing, and the water kept running red. The more he splashed, the more desperate he got, until he dived into the water and started scrubbing at every single spot of red he saw. Even when his own skin turned red, he kept scrubbing. When he reached for his wings to start pulling out bloody feathers, Shouta erased his quirk, causing the wings to disappear. Shortly after his freak-out at the lake, Izuku passed out. Shouta was very glad in that moment that Izuku had hollow bird bones, since the only other person he trusted to carry his bird son was Hizashi, who had been busy being a mother hen over Hitoshi and Todoroki, trusting that Shouta would take care of Izuku, and had left with the rest of the staff and students. Shouta waved off the last medic, knowing that Izuku didn't have any injuries from the fight, and that he wouldn't appreciate being touched by anyone else right now, even if he did have injuries. Izuku jolted awake, silently, tears streaming down his face. He had seen the monster exploding again in his dreams, but this time, he couldn't stop. He had turned to the others in the facility and exploded the man with blue hair, then he turned around and exploded Hitoshi, Shouta, and even Shouta. Izuku sat up in his bed and gripped himself tightly. "You know, it's only a matter of time before you kill them too." "No, I won't," he whispered to himself. "You didn't think you'd kill him either, but you did." "I won't kill Hitoshi, or Shouta, or Shouta. I won't." His voice was shaking, cracking. "If you stay here, you will." Izuku's grip on himself tightened. He looked up suddenly when he heard a toilet flush in the hallway and the faucet turn on. "Leave now, before you kill someone else. Unless you really do want to kill the nice family that has taken in a pathetic, stupid, worthless Deku like you. Izuku got out of his bed, briefly noticing there was a chair in his room with a yellow sleeping bag on the floor next to it. He opened his window. As he jumped out, he heard Shouta's voice calling out to him to come back, but Izuku just flew faster, quickly disappearing from sight. What do you mean he flew off? Keigo exclaimed. Shouta had called him right after he yelled for Hizashi to get up and start searching for Izuku. That's just what I said, Birdbrain. Shouta grumbled. I took 3 minutes to use the bathroom while he was asleep, and he must have woken up in that time and flew out of the window. Right. Where did he go? If I knew that, I wouldn't be telling you to help me look, Shouta yelled. I don't know where my son is, and you need to help me find him. Keigo sighed over the phone. Yeah, I got that. I meant what direction am I starting from? Did he go east, west, north? I don't want to start looking south just for him to be found way to the north. Shouta ran his hands through his hair. He went east. Hizashi took northeast. I'm taking straight east. You should take southeast. Understood. I'll call if I find him. Keigo hung up. Shouta kept running across the rooftops, searching for his son. Izuku had stopped flying. He didn't know exactly where he was, but it didn't really matter. Nothing mattered anymore. He had disobeyed orders when he fought those villains. He had engaged in combat, used his quirk, against the direct orders of a pro hero. And not just any pro hero, but against the direct orders of Eraserhead. Izuku sniffled in despair. He was going to be kicked out of school now, expelled. He would be sent to jail for vigilanteism. He was going to be abandoned, lose the family he just started to feel safe with. Izuku let his tears fall. They only took you in to get you to stop. You broke their trust. I know, he cried. You never deserved their affection. I know, he whispered again. There's only one thing left for you to do. I know. Izuku took up to the sky, wanting to see it one last time. He couldn't jump. After all the times before that he tried, he knows that won't work. Looking at his hands, he extended his talons. That could work. Izuku pulled up his sleeves and touched his talon to his skin. Do it. End it. He pressed his talons a little harder into his skin, drawing a single drop of blood, and paused. Did he really want to do this? No one would miss you. Izuku closed his eyes and saw in his mind's eye Shouta sitting with him, watching cat videos while playing with his curls. The lessons with Hizashi, where he tells Izuku's various methods to help with his self-confidence and gives him the best and warmest hugs. Owl Cafe visits with Hitoshi, midnight talks about past drama, flying with Keigo, playing aerial tag, and talking about how great it is being a bird, and making weekly promises to live just one more week. Izuku lifted his talon from his skin, leaving only a tiny prick point of blood. He couldn't do it. He promised Keigo. He promised. Izuku wrapped his arms around himself and let out a heart-wrenching sob. What am I gonna do now? He cried. I can't go back. Why not? Izuku hissed in surprise and turned around. Hizashi was slowly walking towards Izuku. Why can't you come back? I just can't, he replied brokenly. I killed him. I'm a villain now. No, baby, you're not a villain. Hizashi pulled Izuku into his arms and kissed his forehead. Baby, you were just protecting the rest of your class. You were protecting Shouta. That's the furthest thing from a villain. But I killed him. Let me let you in on one secret, Hizashi whispered as he held Izuku tightly. While we try our best not to, even us heroes have killed people. Izuku hiccuped and looked up at Hizashi. Really? Hizashi pulled Izuku into his lap as he sat down and nodded sadly. Yeah, especially those of us with really powerful quirks. Hizashi ran his fingers through Izuku's hair, and as Izuku was crying, he started humming. It was a gentle sound, light and smoothing, a sound that Izuku could feel deep in his bones and soul. The sound was like a balm to his aching heart. And he held on to Hizashi with everything he was, everything he had. He knew he'd leave bruises on his arms, but he couldn't let him go. He needed this. He needed to be held. He needed his paw. Izuku wanted Hizashi to be his paw. He wanted what Hitoshi had. He wanted a dad and a paw. He wanted a brother. He wanted a real family. And for this moment, being held by Hizashi, being hummed to by Hizashi, he could pretend, just for now, that he had a family. Hizashi could feel his baby bird's sobs turn from desperate to hope, just like he had intended. His quirk, after all, was voice, not shout. He had found, after years of experimentation with a lot of concentration, that various sounds could affect a person's mood, depending on the hertz and frequency he uses, from alertness to sadness, happiness, hopefulness, hopeless. And he could even help to stimulate healing. Tonight his baby needed a little extra hope. Hope that things will be okay, that whatever it was that made him break down, he has the ability to overcome it. He is not alone. Hizashi will be there for him. Shouta will be there for him. Hitoshi will be there for him. Even Keigo will be there for him. As Hizashi felt Izuku's sobs peer out, he planted another kiss to the deep green curls. Baby bird, are you okay to talk to me about what happened? Or do you want me to keep humming? Izuku sniffled a little and pulled back slightly. Were you using your quirk just now? He whispered. I was. Yes, and if you need me to keep going, I will. Oh, okay. Izuku hesitated for another moment. I'll tell you, but can you keep humming? Please? Hisashi smiled at him softly and nodded. Of course I can, my sweet little owl. As Hisashi started humming again, Izuku spoke. I don't want to go to jail, but I disobeyed orders. I know Shouta could have handled things. He's amazing. He's better than I'll ever be, but I knew that disobeying would get me expelled. I knew, and I did it anyways. Izuku burrowed his face into Hisashi's chest, but he kept talking, so Hisashi kept humming. I killed him. I knew he was going to die, and I kept going. I started at a normal level, but he only just barely halted, so I went half power, and he could regenerate. My Screech was crushing his limbs, but he kept healing. I could have stopped. I could have. I don't know what else I could have done. Hisashi laid his cheek against Izuku's hair. Sweetie, Hisashi breathed. Well, yes, you could have stopped. From what I've heard of the attack, that creature wouldn't have stopped. You did what you had to do. No one is upset with you. You're not going to be expelled. You're not going to be arrested. I promise you. Izuku lifted his head and looked Hisashi in the eyes. Really? There was so much hope in that one word. Really, sweet little owl, you're not getting away from me and Shouta that easily. He can handle a little insemination, especially when it comes from you. Hisashi ran his fingers through Izuku's hair, combing to a small snag that was gently detangling it. "Can I tell you something, little bird?" When Izuku nodded, Hizashi continued. "Shouta and I have been talking lately, and well, we love you. We know you were only supposed to be a temporary placement, but you fit our family perfectly." Izuku's eyes widen in surprise. "We've been wanting to extend our family for years, but we weren't going to adopt someone that wouldn't be able to get along with Hitoshi. But you're perfect. Not only do you get along with him, but he also adores you. The two of you have been brothers from the first day you were with us. So Izuku, it's up to you now. Do you want to be a part of our family? You don't have..." Izuku interrupted him with a laugh. Yes, please be my paw." "Okay." Hizashi squeezed him tightly. "Okay, I'll be your paw. And you could be my tiniest son." No psychology quarter? And very little notes? Okay. Okay. Ooh. I'm sobbing. Okay, this chapter is very emotional, but the reason why I'm crying isn't because, if I was sitting down and reading it by myself, I would not be, crying the way I am right now. But, the reason why I am crying is because I have to voice act this. I have to get into the mindset of Izuku, so when I do acting, specifically voice acting and stuff like that, I very like to do a sort of form of method acting, but not what people think when I say to people that I really like method acting, they're like, "Ew, so you act like the character 24/7? No, not that type of method acting. I'm talking about theater method acting. The method acting I was taught in theater, which is basically get instances from your life, your personal life, that you can relate with the character, and slowly work on what you think that character is, right? So I get personal instance from me that I relate to Izuku, especially in this case when I need him to cry, whenever I think of moments where I've been vulnerable enough, like Izuku is right now. Maybe not the same instance of I killed someone, for legal reasons. No, I'm joking. I've never killed someone, but I have been in the position where that thought has crossed my mind, and I was in a very vulnerable, very upsetting state. Luckily, like Izuku, I was able to pull myself out of that. Now, my pulling out of that, is spite. I wish I was joking, out of fucking pure spite. My whole thing was, I'm spiteful, but whatever. Point taken is, you get that, and then, I mix it up with fully understanding what the character is going through in the scene. When I'm in character, I no longer have my own thoughts. I'm thinking, what is this character thinking? What is this character feeling? All that's going in my mind as I'm acting, especially on stage, for theater, for example. In one of my plays, I was one of the leads, and I was the lead. And throughout the whole play, as I'm talking and as I'm, on stage, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what would blank be doing right now? What would blank say? What would blank think? What is happening in the scene that makes, blank, what does this make blank feel? How does this make blank feel? When, for example, when blank was told that they only had a couple, years to live at best, thanks to the greedy company that they worked for, and because of said greedy company, they won't get to live a long, lengthy life like everyone else, because they got exploited by a company who just wanted money, and the company knew all along that these chemicals were hurting them, but they continued to let them work with this and continued to let them do what they did. What's it called? What would the character think? How is the character feeling? So as I'm sitting here and doing Izuku's voice lines, specifically his crying, his sobbing, I'm thinking in my mind, looping in my little mind, right? I just killed someone. I'm not worth it. I'm not, all of these thoughts of, okay, this is what Izuku's feeling. he's in a moment of distress. Before I do any scenes or stuff like that, well, except for here, this is the only time where I don't psychoanalyze every single line and every single movement. But for example, if I were to do this for a show on stage, I would sit down and I would take a bunch of notes on, okay, this is what the character is saying, but what does the character mean? You know, stuff like that. Like, for example, I could say that Izuku's saying, I don't know what I could have done, right? I think what he really meant is, I wasn't smart enough. I needed to be smart enough, and because of that, this person is dead. This is my mistake. I failed. But this person is dead. Because of me, right? That, in very little words, that's what he said. Right, you know, stuff like that where, like, sometimes you say something, but you don't really mean that. Or you say something, but there's undertones of other stuff underneath it. Just like how I psychoanalyzed what Izuku was saying in, what's it called? Someone Better, chapter 18? Yeah, 18. And no, not 18, 17, chapter 17, where Izuku's like, my stomach hurts, please don't leave, please don't go. All of that stuff I do, and I sit down and I do for plays and stuff like that. I analyze everything, like, even when I'm writing, I hope you guys know, the dialogue isn't just something that I'm throwing in there. It's sometimes the characters say what they're actually saying, like they mean it, and sometimes there's undertones. They don't mean that. What they mean is something else, but they say this instead because it's easier to say that. It happens IRL as well. It's something that makes dialogue more dynamic, more interesting, more realistic. But that's why I'm crying. I kind of stopped crying, but that's why I was crying. It was a very emotional episode. This is a very emotional episode. It's why I went on a whole rant about voice acting and acting in general to distract you guys. Hi, I'm trying to help you guys cope. But please take a break if you need to take a break. You know, talk with people if you need to talk. This is a very emotional chapter, and I send hearts to everybody. So as always, my raindrops. Make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.